What's going on YouTube? That's the old soldier coming at you again from Robeson County, North Carolina on a cool but yet foggy fall morning. Say cool, it's in the mid 60s right now. I believe when I checked the temperature is what it said. But it's an extremely foggy morning this morning. Nature of the beast around here. But anyway, like I said, folks, foggy morning. All right, enough of the weather report. Let's talk about the reason I'm doing this. It's in response to an individual that responded to one of my videos from a few months ago, just recently. I'm not going to mention any names because I don't want nobody going out and chastising this individual and whatever for what they believe in. That's why the beauty of this being a free country. You're allowed to believe what you believe. Sadly, this individual's belief mechanism is a bit skewed, in my opinion. But he made a comment in one of my videos about how here in the U.S. we need to try, and I'm trying to think the exact phrasing, is the type of societal system that involves a fair amount of anarchy. Okay. But it's kind of like a socialistic anarchy. I just had to remind the individual that, you know, with anarchy comes chaos, chaos comes destruction, i.e. Antifa in its current state. Okay? BLM is not anarchy, they're communist. Flat out, straight period Marxist communist. So they do have some structure and a hierarchical organization. But my point being is that this individual, you know, he kept responding every time I'd respond about, you know, how finally I just responded to him, you know, I'll stick with my republic and the Constitution, okay? There's some people you cannot persuade, convince, or otherwise, it is thick and foggy this morning, or convince, persuade otherwise that our form of government here in the United States is the best thing going, bar none. Now, I say that with this caveat. Do we have a perfect system? No. I don't think there'll ever be a perfect system as long as man's on the face of the earth. But our constitutional republic has lasted as long as it has because of its protections enamored in the Constitution for the rights of human beings and individuals alike. I get that, human beings and individuals alike. But for the citizenry of the United States, the protection for every individual citizen is what I meant to say, folks. I hadn't had enough coffee, but and I'll stick with that. Have we had to amend our Constitution? Yeah. You know, back in the 20s through the 30s, they put in an amendment that, you know, banned the production and sale of alcoholic beverages. And they realized that backfired hard on them. They eventually had to repeal that, and they did. And really a portion of it boiled down to reality, and I hate to say it like it always is, money. You know, the taxes that had to be paid on it, even though there was a movement, you know, to abstain from alcohol and drugs and that kind of thing. And it was kind of a part of the movement, if you will, was kind of a, you know, we don't want to live like the Roaring 20s. If you go back and study history, folks, the Roaring 20s a lot of ways mirrored the 1980s. You're like, what are you talking about? You know, people could express themselves more freely in the 20s in certain aspects. But not only that, you know, for the conservative, religious, God-fearing folks, the fact that women were starting to wear skirts that came above their knees was just unfounded and unheard of. Not to mention women smoking. The fact that alcohol freely flowed. God, I didn't talk this morning. Freed flowly. Flowed. Sally sold seashells at the seashore. Alcohol flowed freely throughout the land. Not to mention drug use. What do you mean drug use, old soldier? Well, yeah. Folks, if y'all don't realize that heroin and opium have been around a long time. And then you throw in cocaine. Yep. Cocaine was a big popular drug in the 20s. And the thing about it back then, it could be fairly gotten without prescription and it wasn't illegal. Before we really begin to see what it could do. But the whole point of it is that things were easily accessible then, and there was an excess. And long story short, people had enough of these, what I call frivolities, and decided to step up the plate and pressure the lawmakers to do something about it. The problem was the measures were so draconian that it didn't work. I'm sorry I had to pause. This dipstick in front of me stopped at the last minute and turned on their turn signal. But yeah, and so they realized that eventually under pressure we need to slow up on some of these things, and but anyway, that's one of the drawbacks too, that we sometimes put so much pressure on lawmakers that they go into drastic measures to counteract things. Case example, in the 80s, warning labels on music. Prior to that, there hadn't been any warning labels on music. Moms and dads did, I'm going to call it the way I see it, moms and dads did a better job of watching what their children brought home. And, but, like anything else, moms and dads can't see and hear everything that their children's been exposed to or involved with. And so, you had Tipper Gore, Al's ex-wife. And her thing, she went after the heavy metal and hard rock and roll scene, for the most part. And honestly, that looks like cotton candy compared to some of the lyrics of today's music. And of course you had Dee Snider from Twisted Sister went up and basically gave her his what for, and hey, First Amendment. But again, we're a constitutional republic. We are not perfect, but I declare we're the best thing on the face of this earth compared to other nations. Our Constitution guarantees to us the right to bear arms to defend ourselves from not only robbers, thieves, and murderers, but from a tyrannical government. And people don't like to hear that one. They really don't. Even some conservatives don't like to hear that. But that's part of what the Second Amendment was about, was to defend and protect ourselves. In the event of a tyrannical government, we'd have the ability to defend ourselves against those forces of evil. And it may come to that. Hope not, but it might. At the rate that governments are trying to suppress our constitutional Bill of Rights. Go back to the case where that young lady here a few months ago was shot because they were serving a no-knock warrant, even though evidence came out, the police still knocked before they went in. As much as I'm for the police going in after bad guys, I'm not a big fan of the no-knock warrants because, there has been instances past where they've gone into the wrong residence because of bad intelligence. And innocent people have been killed or hurt. Same token, to flip the script, they've taken several bad people off the streets. So it's one of those things, you kind of, the process is there for a purpose, but I don't wholly agree with that particular one. Okay? I understand the premise behind it. If you know the bad guys are there and you want to get in without surprising them, I get it. But to me, there has to be an absolute, and there's no way of guaranteeing that at any given time, because they never know what they're going to encounter when they go through the door. I'm not a fan of it. I understand why they have no knock warrants. I'm just not a fan of it. But again, part of our Bill of Rights, we're guaranteed Fourth Amendment protection from that without a due warrant for them to come in and search and seize our property. Okay? And under the Bush administration, the Patriot Act, big probe and violation into the Fourth Amendment. Even today, can I guarantee you, when I put this out on BoobTube here, I'm sure there's some algorithm at some intelligence and law enforcement agency that screens it. In case I were to say something about somebody or someone of influence or power and what I wish would happen to them, or what I would like to do to them, or what I could do to them. Yeah, Big Brother, I hope you're listening. Because I'm using this as an example. Okay. The monitoring of our communications is a violation. I get it, again. So yeah, we are not perfect. But however, I can go into the streets of any town or city anywhere and protest peacefully on what I don't like, or what politician I don't like, or the policies that they're implementing. Okay? I have a right to keep and bear arms to defend myself, my family, my property from anybody that would wantonly take it by illegal means or measures, and also to defend myself from a tyrannical government. Okay? There's even an amendment that allows you to protect yourself from giving testimony or evidence that would incriminate yourself. Yeah. There's a lot of countries that don't have that. There's a lot of countries that don't have a version of the Miranda rights system, Of course, we didn't have it until, somebody correct me in the comments below, wasn't it 58 or 59 when that became a requirement? Okay? Because someone got arrested and wasn't made aware of their rights as a citizen. Okay? And see, again, that's where the ugly left heads like to argue that even illegal immigrants have that. They have human rights. We can't mistreat them when they cross the border illegally. We have to provide for their needs when they come across illegally until we can figure out what we're going to do. which should be deport them back to the country from whence they came. And there's a multitude of videos documented when they come across, first thing that happens is their story is heard. Why are you coming across? Why are you here illegally? What's going on? If any of them declare some type of political asylum type notice, they take that into consideration. They go into listening to it. But they're offered food, water. They're asked if they need medical attention. Okay? And I still love how the left claims that our current president cages children when in fact it was the previous president did that. But again, we're not perfect. But we have the best system by far, and I keep stressing that point because we do. We truly do. The states are allowed to govern as they see fit within their own states. However, because I know someone's going to say, well, that's not true, old soldier. You're right to an extent. Because sadly, our federal government has gotten too much power at its hands and at times have overstepped their bounds in state affairs. And I think that's why we need a reduction in the federal government. Okay. And many of those federal powers need to be checked and allow the states to govern their states as they see fit. Okay. Yes, there still needs to be some federal oversight on certain things. Again, we're not perfect. But to dissolve all that because, I don't like Orange Man, it's stupid. But more importantly, the faction in this nation that wants to institute an anarchist, communist type power to govern. They want to take away your private property and disperse it. The previous administration tried to do that with wealth distribution. That's another thing. And just to show you how fair and balanced this is, they claimed it because it was, economic prejudice, economic discrimination. That's why that was their excuse for justifying wealth distribution. Actually, it's another step by government to take full control of entrepreneurial enterprises. Okay, to keep any one person from attaining as much wealth that they can and live how they please. Okay, now, I get it. It was Teddy Roosevelt's administration, if I'm not mistaken, that passed the Anti-Monopoly Act. I can't remember the name of the act, but it, and it busted up a lot of the oil companies back then. But we've always seen how loopholes come to bear. Well, those that grew up during the 70s and 80s, like me, especially for me, it came to realization in the 80s. Telephone calls. For all you young kids that were listening out there, used to be the only way you could make a phone call was from a home office or pay phone. Okay, we didn't have these things called cell phones, right? And if you wanted to call and talk to your grandma in Timbuktu, Washington, and you lived in, Alligator Central, Florida, you had to pay for that call, and it usually cost by the minute. Well, for a long time in the 80s, the AT&T was technically the only long-distance phone carrier. Well, eventually they were determined to be a monopoly, and they got busted up, and it caused long-distance rates to drop, believe it or not. A lot of people don't realize that because it put competition back into the market. And eventually, with the advent of cell phone, long distance is no longer a thing. I can get on a computer and use the Skype application and make a long distance call around the world and don't cost me anything. Now, if I want to do it on a cell phone or a sat phone, you have to have the right SIM card and all that crap. You got to pay for that. But the point I'm getting at is that, you know, AT&T was busted up because they were considered a monopoly. You know, I think yesterday they put in the news that the U.S. government is filing litigation declaring Google a monopoly, and folks, who knows how that's going to turn out. But the point I'm getting at is that there's a balance in there somewhere, and sometimes the balance teeters one way or the other. Because, and back to the, and I'll say this again for the last time in this video, we're not a perfect system, but we are the best thing that's out there, in my opinion. But we need to make most of the opportunities of the freedoms that we're given here in this nation, okay? Because the freedoms you have in this nation, they're a privilege and a right. Whoa, hey, you use privilege and a right in the same sentence? Yeah. It's a right guaranteed to you by by the Constitution of the United States of America. But it's a right that has been fought for, bled for, and died for. Giving you a privilege. Okay? And if you disagree with me, that's fine. Let me know in the comments section below. And the reason I say privilege is you've got people that have never stepped up to serve and defend it. And I'm not saying everybody should have to do that, but you've got people that haven't. And then when they start to make demands of what their rights are and their freedoms are, sometimes they don't always have a full understanding of what that cost of freedom is, what that cost of freedom was, you know, and still today. And if we let these little punk butt anarchists slash communists from Antifa and BLM that are backed by George Soros and others continue to rule the day, you may lose your freedom, folks. So, anyway, that's all I've got for this morning, guys and gals and girls and guys and boys and girls and peoples and ladies and gentlemen and all that good stuff. Y'all stay safe out there. Be careful. If you haven't voted yet, go vote. Make your voice heard. Okay? And just pray that what I believe is going to happen after November 3rd doesn't happen. But if not, be as prepared as you possibly can be. So until tomorrow, folks, God bless. Take care. Soldier out. Oh, it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Support the boo-boos.